People always ask, what was that moment? What was the moment that we had that idea?
I was dieting my whole childhood, near starving myself to try to look like these girls. And the only time that I could ever dress like them, I would lose my period because of I wasn't eating enough. And so I was part of that whole cycle.
In the 80s, when I was a fashion editor in New York, I climbed up many stairs to discover someone like Marc Jacobs. And I could just put a new designer like that into all the editorial pages. I could put vintage. I could do anything I wanted.
It's wild because when we started What's Underneath in 2014, it seemed like there was just so much conversation online that StyleLikeU was part of, embracing bodies at all sizes. With the rise of Ozempic, the mainstream imagery that we're now seeing is just skinniness being more deified than even ever. I didn't see it coming that was gonna reverse.
What we're seeing today in the government, I saw was happening in the fashion industry 15 years ago. It was basically fascism. Hey everyone, I'm so happy to have you here for another episode of Don't Change a Thing. Today is a special day because I'm here with my daughter and co-founder of StyleLikeU, Lily Mandelbaum. We're going to be doing the podcast together probably monthly. So hi Lily, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. This is a little bit awkward, actually, for me because I'm used to doing everything with you, Lily. We've done everything together for the last 15 years. We're usually bouncing off of each other, doing an intro. And so it's a little bit weird for me to be guiding an intro like I'm the host and you're the guest.
Well, usually I'm control freak Lily.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I don't even think of it that way. I think of it more that I've just gotten sort of so now in a groove of doing this on my own. And that's suddenly to be with you and being the host of something that's StyleLikeU is definitely a weird feeling. And I'm a little bit tongue-tied. Oops, rings.
My mom is being guided she needs to stop clinking her rings so much in the recordings because she makes not a noise.
Well, I've actually been asked to take them off, but that is not a possibility because I couldn't function. I wouldn't be able to be myself at all. So now I have to use a little bit less hand gesticulations on that, which is equally as hard. So Lily, how does it feel for you right now in this moment that you're not co-hosting the show and that I've been doing this now, I don't know how many episodes without you? How does it feel?
Well, I'll answer that in two ways because I feel like how I feel in this exact moment is separate from how I feel in the broader sense of the chapter we're in together. But in this exact moment, I think I also feel a little funny and awkward just because I'm used to, my personality is sort of take command. I feel a little more awkward in the let you take command and host me, but also good, healthy, good for me probably. It's one of the themes internally that I'm working on in myself in life right now is learning how to sit back, relax, not always have to be in control of every situation.
How's that going, sitting back? In particular, I guess maybe with StyleLikeU, but just in general in life.
I think it's healing for me, actually stepping back from being involved in the day-to-day of this particular show within StyleLikeU. There's a healing element for me in that because I think one of my psychological patterns has been this feeling that things don't go well if I'm not in control or at the helm of it and feeling like I hold the weight of everything on my shoulders at all times or something. So I think for me, seeing you take the helm of this particular project and work with your producer and your team without me and not be micromanaging, there's a healing in that for me and in the letting go and in the seeing how well you're doing without me is actually been there's a healing in that for me. I'm really proud of you too.
Thank you.
I think you're doing a really good job.
Thanks. We're breaking patterns.
Mm-hmm. This journey of separation and each being in our own space there's different elements that are healing for both of us. How has it been for you?
I definitely have grown a lot as the time has gone on. I've become much more comfortable with being on my own and actually really liking it. It gives me the ability to connect to the guest in a one-on-one way, similarly to how I would if I was meeting them in a room or meeting them anywhere on the street, which is how I like to do interviews. It's like I've met them for the first time and I just get really in this groove, connecting with them from a very heartfelt, almost meditative place, which I know that we both do that. But yeah, doing it on my own and just getting more and more comfortable and feeling like they've gone well it's given me confidence. I've grown.
That's good. Yeah, because I think I'm getting that a little bit from my process with what I'm doing on my own without you. But I think in general, when we would direct or interview people together, there's sort of like roles that we would take of you being the one that would maybe take the conversation on the tangents that are the fun twists and turns, and like I would be the one to keep the structure in place or bring it back to where we were. And we would kind of like not have to strengthen certain parts of ourselves because we're like in these roles with each other. Each in doing our own creative projects on our own right now are probably like strengthening certain areas where we need to get more confident in ourselves, where we would lean on the other one.
Absolutely.
Like last week, I was like, there's just so many creative decisions that I've been making alone that I normally would be like leaning on you, being like, for your opinion on how a shot looks, or do I need to do this part, or am I done? Can I call it quits? Like, just these little creative decisions all the time that we would lean on each other for, or like step on each other's toes, or like, I mean, in interviews, my mom and I used to just like have like a unspoken language of like communication to decide when we were done or where we needed to go next. And we would often like ask the same question at the same time or whatever.
Yeah. It almost becomes too easy. And then you don't feel, I know for myself, it becomes too easy and too familiar and not challenging anymore, which last week I did an interview with Lena Waithe, and she was talking about how she's obsessed with watching documentaries of mountain climbers because they do this unbelievably difficult feat, something that seems impossible, and then they get to the top and they can barely stay there. They're at the peak, and then they have to come all the way back down to the beginning again and climb a mountain again. And that just has resonated so deeply with me in terms of where Lily and I are right now. And I know you're feeling this too, is just like going back down to that bottom of the mountain and beginning again. What a weird feeling that is. The shakiness of doing something from the beginning again, or something that's new, and the wobbly kind of sea legs that I have been feeling, and I know that you've been feeling. But at the same time, it's also exciting to start something again and to be back at the bottom again. It's exciting, to start over and change things and not make the same mistakes that, you've made in the past, or I don't know. You're like breathing freely in a certain way, but I've been, feeling at the same time just, I don't know, like, who am I, or what am I, or what am I doing, or, is any of this right? Or when you and I had just gotten so comfortable with, we knew that what we were doing was really great and special, and we were just in such a overly comfortable rhythm with each other, and it just became a little bit not challenging.
Yeah, totally.
And it just made me feel a lot better to hear Lena talking about it, because we had reached this peak and we've had to go back to the bottom of the mountain and just do things again in this separate and autonomous way.
Yeah, it's been interesting for me. One other just like element emotionally for me of not like doing this with you every week like I'm used to is I feel FOMO. Some people that you're interviewing for this show, like I've been with you trying to like get them on one of our shows for 10 years, like Lena. But it's been like an interesting kind of practice of me like letting go, recognizing that, I don't know, just recognizing that you have to kind of like let go sometimes of something in order to create space for something new to arise. Like, for example, I couldn't be at that interview last week because I was filming. It was bittersweet. I wanted to be there with you, but I know that like in order to develop this new chapter of my life and this thrill of being a beginner again and developing myself in new ways, that you have to let go sometimes of, you can't do everything. So
I very much admire your courage in being able to let go like that. I think it's really brave. And there's also the FOMO goes both ways too, because Lily is entering the world of documentary, and it's going very deeply into a person's story and immersing into someone's world or other people's world, something that we're not doing in our videos. There's a part of me that thinks, oh, that seems really interesting too and really fun too, but no, like pulling back and recognize that I'm really in my alignment, you're in yours, and our personalities and how they fit into doing that are different.
I feel the same way of like, I have the FOMO, but then I'm like, no, Lily, trust in your exact like specific alignment with what you're doing and let go.
And that's really helped us both, I think, healthily go through this process.
Totally. So the current plan is that I'm going to come on this show once a month to unpack with my mom some of the themes that are coming up in her interviews and how they're impacting us personally and how they tie to the larger pillars of the StyleLikeU mission and all the change that we'd like to create through these healing conversations in people and in the world. And we'll be talking about things like, Mom, what are we going to talk about? What kind of themes?
It's going to be the usual things that we address, gender, race, age, body, all of the things that people are grappling with in terms of feeling free and whole and happy in themselves and comfortable in their skin. But I can see us also going into even more nuanced things like people pleasing and
boundaries, triggers.
Because
we're never triggered. We're really good at boundaries and we're not people pleasers at all. Right, Mom?
We are filled with all of those issues constantly. And I think that we really are excited about the freedom of being able to talk about those things and how much in confronting them, it's really helped us grow and expand as people.
The conversations that we've had in any of our video series over the years, whether it's been our closet series or What's Underneath or now this show, we've always found that like the interviews speak directly to what we're needing to heal in ourselves. And oftentimes like what we're curious about in another is really pretty connected to like what we're needing help with in ourselves to become more free people. And that's been like a theme throughout this whole last decade plus journey. And so we're excited to have a forum in which we can kind of share more about that in real time and how the conversations are like speaking to what we're grappling with inside. And we also want these episodes to be a chance for you all to share how these themes and conversations are hitting you, what questions you have about the show, about us, about the topics being discussed. We're going to be giving you a chance on social media to submit questions in advance of these episodes for us to talk through live on the show. So stay tuned. Oops, I just got a notification to take my egg freezing supplements, which I basically forget to do near every day.
Which will be a topic at some point.
The biological clock and the pressure of it. Not today. In this first episode, we thought it would be nice, since some of you are new listeners and maybe new to StyleLikeU, we thought it would be a nice moment to kind of like get back to the core and just tell you more about what is StyleLikeU, how Don't Change a Thing, the show kind of fits into the larger mission of StyleLikeU, and share a little bit more about our journey creating StyleLikeU, why we did it, and how StyleLikeU is sort of sitting in the current cultural landscape of what is happening in our world today, some of the ways in which we feel that this work is more needed now than ever in ways that we didn't necessarily see coming. Mom, why don't you kick it off?
People always ask, what was that moment? What was the moment that we had that idea? So basically, the idea is born out of my increasing frustration and unhappiness as a fashion stylist in the fashion industry, and the increasing amount of homogenization, conformity, corporatization, if that's even a word. But over time, I had found myself feeling very alienated in an industry that I once loved, because I could see how it was becoming more and more about exploiting insecurities and selling us things, instead of a place that I had originally found it to be in the 80s when I was a fashion editor in New York and starting out in my life in my 20s, where it was a place of a bottom-up culture of individuality and authenticity. And literally people were getting hired to be fashion editors and do fashion shoots all over the world if based on what they were wearing. Literally, if they walked in and had unbelievable personal style and were very unique and creative, they would get a job. They didn't have to have a resume. No one cared about anything about what their jobs were before. They just got hired if they were creative and they were interesting, literally at the top fashion magazines where I was working. I had seen this whole landscape over the course of about 25 years change from a sort of utopia that really lit my fire and where I really learned what it was to be an authentic person. It's where I learned that, you could buy a handbag for $1 and it could be the chicest thing that you have for your whole life. Flash forward into my mid to late 40s when I was a freelance fashion stylist after I'd become a mom and then taught yoga and meditation and then gone back into fashion styling in my 40s, seeing the whole change of greed and capitalism on steroids take over and pretty much demolish, in my opinion, the fashion industry.
Can you explain more about why you think that was? I don't know, like why the change happened?
Money. I think it began in the mid 80s with MTV and all of this awareness suddenly that you could brainwash people and control people with marketing and a marketing machine. Over time, it became so formulaic that literally you couldn't even find a model to wear clothes for a fashion shoot that wasn't 14 years old or didn't look 14 years old, who weighed more than 90 pounds or 100 pounds, and who smiled, who had any kind of a personality outside of being like a cardboard, like a avatar.
I think that like what happened to the industry is that it started to realize that it could make a lot more profit and money by, instead of style and fashion being a creative expression to like celebrate who you are, express who you are, that it would make more money if it made everybody hate themselves by creating this very exclusive ideal of beauty and what was in and out of trends and what was cool or what wasn't cool.
Yeah.
And the more exclusive that felt and unattainable, the more people would spend money to try to attain it and think that was the answer to all of their self-hatred and insecurity.
Exactly. Like they woke up to how much money they could make by making everyone feel left out of the conversation and not good enough. In fashion editorials where at the beginning when I was in it, I could get vintage clothing. I could do anything I wanted. I could be as creative as I wanted to. I climbed up many stairs to discover someone like Marc Jacobs. Like when Marc Jacobs first started, it was a 5th floor walk-up apartment, and seeing the first line of clothes of Marc Jacobs that was inspired by Prince Purple Rain and Gautier at the time. And I could just put a new designer like that into all the editorial pages. I could put vintage clothes into the editorial pages. I could do anything I wanted. Fast forward to by the end when I finally quit and right before I started StyleLikeU, I had to put so many advertisers into the editorial pages that I was like cutting up Guess clothing, a huge brand, or diamond jewelry, the ones that were paying for everything and infiltrating all the editorial pages. I had to like stick it in everywhere. And there was just no freedom anymore. There was no creativity.
Much like today's government, it was bought by the fashion industry.
Yeah, everything was bought. Editorial was bought. I couldn't show a new designer. It had to be all the huge designers that made, that had the money to pay for advertising. Advertising became editorial.
Wait, I just want to say the point of an editorial, just like really for people that are like young and don't know this, is for someone like you who was an editor to freely, not bought, share what was inspiring and creative art, the art being made in fashion that was like,
It was art. It was pure art.
It was supposed to be, but then it became completely controlled by advertisers and you couldn't act. It was fake. It wasn't actually.
Yeah, it was basically fascism. What we're seeing today in the government, I saw was happening in the fashion industry 15, 16, 17 years ago. And that led me to want to create an alternative. So that was my side of the story. And Lily.
And my side of the story was just that I was a teenager and had really suffered in my adolescent years with my body image, my self-image. As a consumer of the magazines of that era, like most of us, felt like I wasn't good enough, that I couldn't be part of the conversation of beauty and style unless I fundamentally changed my appearance to look like the avatar of what was being told was beautiful, just like a wafy, stick thin woman, which is fine if you're that, but I wasn't that, and was, as most of us were, made to feel that that was the only way to be part of the conversation. I also had, my mom was kind of fit this beauty standard a little bit more. And so I also like struggled with that in my own way. And it was also the era of like best dress, worst dress, like fashion was just kind of mean. I was dieting my whole childhood, near starving myself most of my childhood to try to look like these girls. And the only time that I could ever like dress like them and look like them, I would like lose my period because of I wasn't eating enough. And so I was part of that whole cycle. And basically, as I got towards the end of my teenage years, I sort of started to sniff out that there was something else out there. We knew people in our lives that were not conforming to the trends and the norms. There were people behind the scenes in the industry, or people that we just knew, or people that we saw on the street. And my mom and I always shared this kind of interest in those people that really had a sense of expressive personal style, but where you could tell it was coming from this deep sense of themselves and comfort in who they were. And the clothing almost didn't matter. It was just like it was fun and amazing, but it was very clearly like just this sort of externalization of something, a freedom inside. And so we literally, StyleLikeU basically was just like an exploration of like that question of like, what is the difference here between style and fashion media at the time? And like, it was a genuine like, hunt for us to kind of figure that out and then free ourselves. Because my mom felt trapped as a creator in that industry. And of course, you also had your own sort of like self-image traps as well around aging maybe, and your boobs or whatever, like flat-chestedness. Basically, we just picked up a home video camera one day and started what became StyleLikeU, where we would go into people's homes and interview them about how they basically got the freedom or the confidence to be so free in who they are and to not buy into the fascist norms of the fashion media.
The very first one being one that liberated me from my boob complex. The very first video, right?
Yeah.
It was a friend of Lily's, started to talk about how she loved her flat chest. That was our very first video, how she wore men's shirts and opened it up without a bra and loved her flat, no cleavage chest. And 15 years ago, that was not happening. I was fully liberated from that moment on, never wore a padded bra or a bra again. And it was like Pandora's box just opened.
Yeah. But very immediately, these interviews started to kind of reprogram my brain. I started to discover that I could have a sense of style in the body that I am in naturally, and, find a way to express myself through clothing that was a genuine expression of who I was, and not just sort of trying to squeeze myself into this box of what was seemed cool at the time. Yeah, immediately we both started to deeply, deeply transform, and our brains started to reform from all the unlearning. And so that we did hundreds of episodes of that closet series at the beginning. And then fast forward, we ended up starting What's Underneath, which I'm sure is, for most of you listening, is the show that you probably discovered us through. Talk about Pandora's box. That is what really opened Pandora's box as far as the unlearning journey that we and you and our community, I think, went on with us, because every episode was like a peeling of the onions, of the onion of every single way we've all been programmed and conditioned by patriarchy and capitalism and white supremacy and everything. We were unpacking with our subjects, with our guests, in every episode, all the layers of that programming. And it almost became like a symbolic removal, taking off the layers of clothing was going along with removing the layers of programming and conditioning and reclaiming our bodies and our beings. It was just, a complete education for the two of us, and complete transformation. And
yeah, which I think then brings us to this moment of Backlash. We were just carried on this incredible journey and ride this new portal and this opening into people discovering that they all are beautiful and mythological and powerful if they believe themselves to be. That was what we figured out in all of our work, that is the truth. And the lie is you're a nothing, that you have to be like a celebrity or wear this thing or achieve these certain things or have this certain amount of money or be this certain age to be beautiful, powerful, stylish, to be anything, just to be a somebody.
To have value, yeah. It's wild because for like 5+ years when we started What's Underneath in 2014 and until really maybe I went late to the Backlash party. Like maybe I got so comfortable in my body that I like wasn't seeing the backlash happen until more recently. But it just seemed like progress was happening, at least, as far as people deprogramming their brains from thinking that there's one body type. This is just one area. Of course, there's a million areas that progress I thought was happening in that now there's a backlash to. But when it comes to body image specifically, it seemed like there was just so much conversation online that StyleLikeU was part of, that other people were also leading the conversation around that, of embracing bodies at all sizes. And it seemed like that was just, I didn't see it coming, that was going to reverse. And of course it wasn't, I knew always that there was like some degree in advertising and marketing that was like co-opting that movement. Body positivity became just kind of like trendy for a second in mainstream media. I always knew that was maybe just a like superficial co-opting of something going on and wasn't going to last, that piece. But I don't know, it's just been really surprising for me personally to see the conversation around bodies like seem to evaporate in a lot of spaces. And, with the rise of Ozempic and everything, the mainstream imagery that we're now seeing is just like skinniness being more deified than even ever, which is just like, I really thought when we started this, that movement against that was just going to get bigger. And maybe that was naive of me, but because the reprogramming that I personally did through StyleLikeU, like it really penetrated, like the interviews that we did for 10 years on people of all bodies and ages and races and everything, really did truly change the way I think about beauty in not a fake way, not in like I'm not just saying it way. It actually like truly made my brain switch. It's just hard to, it makes me sad that, that people are still feeling like they have to look one way.
That's completely true. And it is very disheartening. But I feel that for me, it just emboldens me. All of it just emboldens me to keep going. And
of course, like the biggest, most disturbing backlash of it all is obviously like the government situation and all of the rights that are being taken away from every person for being every marginalized group for being who they are, which
it's all connected. It's because controlling people with fads and trends and how they feel about their body, their right over their body to love their body, and is all connected to disempowering people, to making anyone who isn't a straight, white, powerful, rich man, feel like they have no power and like they have no meaning and they don't exist, basically. So it is crazy. It's a really, we're obviously in a really wild moment, but I see it as it's only happening because of how much progress there's been, because of how powerful we have all become in ourselves.
The threat of that.
The awakening to our own power, that we have is that we're all equal in the power that we're given, that we all come from the same power source, that there is no such thing as someone being able to take power away from you from the inside. In reality, someone can't take away your sense of self. And I think that all of this is just happening. The backlash is happening because of what a force of nature, a tsunami that has happened in terms of people awakening to their own power, their own beauty, their own purpose. And their own, strong sense of self and feeling comfortable in their skin and who they are.
And the power of the like broader movements that people are creating together, being a threat to the systems that don't want to be dismantled and want to stay in power.
Right. It means that everything that has existed that's created all of this oppression and exploitation of us as free people, really, truly, which is what our right is, our birthright, has to go, has to crumble. It all has to be transformed. I mean, I don't even know what's going to happen, but I do know that I do believe that it's unstoppable, that the awakening to our true selves, there's no bigger power than that, than knowing who you are from the deepest place inside of you.
Well, and what's possible when everybody who knows who they are from the deepest place inside comes together.
Collectively, and it is unstoppable. And I believe that it just means that our job with StyleLikeU is just to keep going even stronger and harder and not to be bullied and not give in.
Yeah, so that's what we're going to be doing. And then in these episodes every month, we're going to be unpacking some more takeaways from the episodes and what we're learning. And we'd love to hear from you in the meantime. If you want to send us a DM on Instagram, that's the best way to talk to us. We would love to hear from you if you have any questions about our relationship, about our journey with our individuation, about
what it's been like to start a media company from nothing as a mother and daughter.
Also, we would be really excited to hear from you about what kind of themes you might be interested in hearing us unpack on these episodes. Like, what are some of the topics that get brought up in these interviews that you'd like to go into on a deeper level? Really, just send us a DM with any of your questions or suggestions, and we'd be really excited to hear from you.
I absolutely love doing this with you, Lily. I hope that you are happy doing this as well with me. I don't think I'm really a host when I'm with you because you're too much of your own powerful host. We're just kind of having a conversation. And as we're having this conversation, I'm realizing how much there is.
Yeah, we got to sit down and really figure out what we want to talk about because we have a lot to talk about. Yeah, I had a fun time too, Mom, and I love you.
I love you too. And we will see you all for the next episode. And we could not be doing any of this without you. We love you all too.
Yeah, we love you too.
We love the StyleLikeU community so much.